women in my church asked me to lead the women's ministry. I was a volunteer, but I didn't care. I was thrilled to be able to use my seminary training and to minister to these women that I loved so dearly. I recruited a team of dynamite women. We got together, we prayed, and we made plans. And I was so excited about the plans that we made that I wanted to share them with the senior pastor. Now, I had never spoken with this senior pastor. It was a huge mega church. I hadn't spoken to him partly because I was tongue-tied around him. My mouth just didn't work in his presence. And partly because the work of the women was somewhat marginalized in this church. Being tongue-tied was absolutely crazy. With the women I spoke, I taught, the words just flowed freely. But around this man, this senior pastor, my mouth was like a dry desert. But I just knew that he would want to know about our plans. So I made an appointment, and I took a copy of our mission statement and our vision and our goals and our dreams, and I wanted to explain to him what we were doing. There I was in my best suit, my high heels. I made my way confidently through one secretary and then the next into his very large office. It was a heavy mahogany bookcases lined the walls. Everything in there seemed oversized, and I felt even more miniature. I took a seat in one of the two mammoth leather chairs opposite the bookcase, and there he was sitting at his desk writing feverishly. I waited for him to acknowledge me, but he seemed lost in his work. After a minute or two, he lifted his head, looked at me over his glasses, and said, "Yes." That was all that came out of his mouth. I wondered if he knew who I was, and so I introduced myself, and I began to tell him, I said, "I'm here and I'd like to tell you about the plans for the women's ministry next year." With that, he simply looked down and continued his work. I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. My pulse quickened, and in a few moments I simply gathered my papers and left the room. He had said one word to me, one word, "Yes," and that was it. Well, I went out to the car and I kept my tears until then, and once I got in the car, they flowed. Oh, did they flow. I look back on that conversation, and if you could even call it that, and I can't excuse his rudeness, but he is a gifted man with tremendous responsibilities. That's no excuse, but it does help me understand. And I also have to consider the situation from his perspective. To him, I must have seemed like a deaf and dumb woman who couldn't get out 2 words without stumbling. He must have wondered how was it that the women of his church would choose me to lead. You see, around him, I had no voice. You may have had a similar experience. It happens to a number of women, but I hope the lesson today will help you. Over the years, I have found my voice. It was there all the time. I guess it was blocked by the fear that I wouldn't represent women well. I don't know. But there are good men and women, and they helped me, and they'll help you. Take to practice. Use your voice. I've traded silence for one of the many voices who speak to women today and for women today. I'm not aggressive. I'm graciously assertive. I encourage you to do the same. Find your voice. We need you speaking today.